Yo, this is my guy Eric Smith with Winning Strategies, and you guys already know I would not be representing anybody who did not affiliate with Father's Rights. Call my man at 443-768-8158. And if you need to email him because of correspondence you need him to look at, it's winningstrategies.fcc@gmail.com. This is Dads for the Win. It's your boy Norm. See you in another video.
All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. This is the Fatherhood Fairness Town Hall meeting for fathers to and supporters of fathers to, I'll say, start planning our agenda for, let me see, the upcoming here in Maryland is called the General Assembly session. Um, in other states, just the legislative session on bills that will be presented to become law. Now, um, I know I'm supposed to be joined by several guests this evening, but I'm going to start this off. As you saw the commercial that's we have for winning strategies right now. It goes without saying, okay? It goes without saying that fathers need help. This whole issue of fatherhood fairness needs to be addressed. Um, we just want a lot of fathers, a lot of, say, relatives of fathers, other fathers, and even some supporters, because there are some mothers out there, and I'll say aunts and uncles, cousins, that really believe, that really know that fathers are getting the short end of the stick. Okay, now we have to be honest. We really have to be honest. A lot of times there are some fathers who don't stand up for what's right, who don't do what's necessary as a father. Okay. We can't always say that they didn't know, okay, because mothers do it and they don't know. Okay. So what stops you from doing what's right? Or what do you think stops a father from doing what's right? So here this evening, tonight, we want to start the conversation to make this an all out effort, make this an all out agenda, not just here in the state of Maryland, but we want to gain support. We want to gain that momentum throughout the entire country in various states. Okay. And I'm talking about those states where, according to the National Parenting Organization, these states ranks a C minus or below. Like here in the state of Maryland, last I checked, it was a D plus with equal parenting rights. A D plus. Okay. Now, I don't want to seem like that I'm just pulling stuff out of the air. So I have to come off with something that is absolutely right, absolutely true. Okay. Yes, I have been the one that I have fought and still fighting for the rights of to get to see my son. Okay. You know, I had a conversation today via text, surprisingly, with my daughter. Okay, the conversation. Well, I don't say the conversation. The relationship was a little strained. However, I don't know what it was it about today. We seemed to have a happy um, communication strain on text because I was actually in the tattoo shop. Okay, now uh, we were there. I was there. I was just talking with her, and we were just having a good old conversation. And, that's something that a lot of fathers miss. Okay. That's something that a lot of fathers can look to doing. Okay. Now, a lot of times the courts block us from doing that. A lot of times the court keeps us from getting getting things done that's supposed to be done to help us to just make sure that our children grow up whole. All right. Now I'm gonna bring on a friend of mine. Some of you may have seen his videos on YouTube. He's actually a mentor of mine, I'm gonna say, um, because I have to throw some stuff out there on how to make this effort flow here in Maryland a little easier. Okay, and he's my backup, even though he's across the country. You know, Mr. Nix,
What's going
how
on,
are
man?
you?
I'm hanging in there, man. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Everyone, this is my good friend, Mr. Norman Nix from the Norman Nix Show on YouTube. Okay. Um, introduce yourself, Mr. Nix.
I am Norman Nix. Me and Eric have been friends for a couple of years now. Met on Facebook doing fathers' rights advocacy. Um, we had a game plan on how to financially get ourselves started. He went in the direction of nonprofit. I went in the direction of YouTube to monetize, and we're now coming back full circle now that we both have launched our platforms, and I've made some roots where we're both at in our states. Um, I do fathers' rights advocacy because I had to go through my own issues as a former paralegal. Basically, I did it all with no attorney. Um, what minor part of an attorney I did bring on was just for a portion, and she didn't help me out, and I got rid of her as soon as I got her. So that's one of the things that I teach fathers is when and how to use an attorney as a tool, much how you would use Chat GPT or AI as a tool. An attorney is a tool that a parent has to use in their arsenal in family court. So you can choose to use this expensive tool, or you cannot, but I show fathers how to do it the generic version DIY, if they want to file for custody and and go for as far in the courts as possible without an attorney. So that's about it in a nutshell.
Now, explain DIY and what is it and how it really works and how it can work for a father, for me, if you don't mind.
So DIY is basically do it yourself. So without an attorney. So basically, what you want to do is learn what I did and how I presented online in teaching fathers is I teach them to go into their own county's website to look up their superior court and what the rules and regulations and the lingo are, because you may go on to a fathers rights forum like on Facebook or whatever and talk to fathers that have been in different issues or different areas of their struggles, but their lingo or their issues may not be the same as yours, just off of, sorry, people running in and out, just off of your region alone. For instance, where Eric's at in Maryland, they use what's called magistrates. Out here, we don't call them magistrates. We call them what is Eric? Uh, they're not magistrates or something else. I can't even remember the name of it. But anyways, we call them something different out here. But they're not called magistrates out here. But they're basically judges and attorneys that want to be judges that are put on the bench as like in a kiddie pool. So they kind of put them in family court. They kind of put them in family court. Commissioner is what we call them out here. But
Okay.
they put them in a family court setting, basically, as like the kiddie pool. And a lot of times they try to make big waves in that pool because they know it's their pool. So I teach fathers and mothers basically how to get around these, tyrannical judges that have their own rules and regulations, but they're still bound by a structure. So I teach you how to appeal if something doesn't go your way. But the I think the most important thing that myself and Eric teach is the emotional intelligence that's needed to go against and do it yourself. If you don't have the emotional intelligence to keep it cool, calm and collect, because there's a time and place to let loose and to get angry, but there's a time and place where you got to be cool, calm, cool, and collective. especially to get what you want. So that's where I'm at.
All right. So now, basically, Norm, and so they don't think this is really a scripted sort of conversation that I'm trying to have. It's not scripted, but however, it still follows the script that we've been doing for the past, I'm gonna just say, year and a half. Before we were doing it, we were really, really trying to make this go. I'll say a strong front. Now, fathers, when I say have your game plan together, I really mean it. I'm going to show several videos, okay, of what I did with fathers. Okay, I had conversations with fathers and what he went through. Okay, now Norman, this is your first time seeing this, so I want you to look at and see if even in your case over in Arizona, and do you think some fathers are still going through this today? Here's one.
Rashard. Okay. I am going over his paperwork, letting them know the education on
Sorry
how
about the
he can
sound content.
combat what the um, magistrate has said. It's all about education and empowerment with us. Okay. Now, Rashard, this is being recorded live. From what we just talked about, where is your head? Honestly, don't hold back.
Honestly, I'm I'm frustrated now at the fact that it was the court's decisions or the magistrate decision was premeditated. Given they heard the words, okay, they asked me, is there a child support order in place? Yes. Right then and there, they already had their mind made up of he's going to pay child support and the mom is going to have full custody of the kids. But going over the transcripts of that court order that day, I didn't sit down and proofread it until I got with Art. Like you said, knowledge is everything, and it's like they contradict themselves a lot, and it's crazy because you see things. Can I give them an example in here?
Go ahead.
Like,
This is yours.
right, so in here we got things like this. This is prime example. Okay. The parties broke up before the parent's daughter was born. Right? Okay, me and such and such had a relationship, daughter. We was done before our daughter came into play. It says the father does not have a significant relationship with the daughter in terms of time spent. Mind you, my kid's mom keep them away from me. So how could I ever spend time or build a relationship with the kids?
Norman,
Yeah.
is that is that common? Isn't that commonplace for a mother to just keep the child away?
Yeah. So one of the things that I try to tell unwed fathers, especially whether you are going through, a toxic relationship breakup, or if you guys are thinking about marriage, what you need to do is go in there and establish paternity. And in most cases, that would include a DNA test, and that would squash everything right from the beginning. So that's all I gotta say as far as that story. And from what I heard from what homeboy said, when she started keeping the baby away from him right off cap before the baby was even out of the womb, that raised red flags all day. I was like, Maury, you know what I mean?
Well, let's go on with this.
That right there is frustrating me because I've repeated myself multiple times. Hey, she's keeping the kids from me. Hey, she's keeping the kids from me. Hey, I gotta ask for permission to see the kids. Can you grant this from me? I mean, this is the literal freaking reason I'm coming to court for custody to see the kids. It's not like I don't want to see my kids.
So, but then, wait a minute, they filed for child support before they even made a decision on your custody, right?
Correct.
You
And then
you filed for custody.
I filed for custody first, way before the child support was even in order.
Norman, did you hear that?
I heard
He
that.
filed he filed for custody.
But my question is, as a paralegal and being in this game, and not somebody just sitting on the sidelines, my question would be, what came out of you filing for custody? Because you can file. It doesn't mean you showed up to your own filing and didn't have it dismissed. You know what I mean? So what was the outcome of your filing in court? And how come it didn't work out to where she was still able to keep the kids from you, even if you filed for paternity?
I read over the document. I read over it. Okay. They never okay, he was supposed to go to a mediation session. It never happened.
Why
Okay.
didn't it happen
And
though?
say again.
Why didn't it happen? And if it didn't happen at his fault, why didn't he pursue it? You know what I mean? Because that's what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. And that's what I told him to do. Because the judge, the magistrate, here it is, the magistrate that ruled in his case, I told him to challenge her ruling, okay,
Mhm.
and put in there that the case never went to court for custody. The case never went to court for custody. So
Hold on, hold on, hold
why
on.
are they?
Let's back up. Let me back up. So you didn't tell him, you advised him his option was that he could challenge the magistrate. And so he took it upon himself to say, you know what, my option's way out. It would be my best interest to challenge the magistrate. Show me how to do this DIY. And you explained to him the process.
There you go.
Okay. And then when he went in there, what happened?
That's when it gets a little muddy. Okay. When I say muddy, they didn't. They have in Norman. I have to tell you, this is how it's done here in Maryland. They do not respond to fathers when they bring up a challenging situation, when they're faced with a challenging situation about how they do things. Okay, this young father, clearly brought the case to them before the child support was even put into place to have his custody rights. Okay,
No, and I
and
understand. I understand that, but Eric, you and I both know that in order to co-parent, we're at the bottom of the hill. We have to climb our way up. With the baby mama or the whatever is already sitting on the hill and having the high ground is what I'm trying to get at. So knowing that they have the high ground and you filing, there are steps that you have to take to get up to the top of the hill where she's at, so you could be at a level playing ground to where you can do 50-50, because the judge is right. Regardless of the circumstance and regardless of her being able to do whatever because of the system being broken, the fact is this man has no relationship with this girl, despite the need to have one. Up until this point, he does not have one. So it has to be in the best interest of the child to introduce this man. And again, I don't know the dynamics of their relationship, but from what I'm hearing and understanding, is he has never seen this child and never had
no, he
access to
has.
this.
No,
Okay,
he has. They used to live together.
but while after she had the baby,
Yes.
so what is he talking about in here where he was saying that the she left before the baby was born?
That's what DSS put in the paperwork.
And this is where I have a hard time with being able to help certain brothers or certain individuals, man or woman or whatever, is because when the waters get too deep, and I need to start treading water to understand what's going on. That's probably when you need an attorney. Just saying. I mean, because if you would have came to us on day one and been like, "Yo, how do I file?" We're gonna walk you through the process. But when you come to us and you've already stirred up a hornet's nest or neglected your case or half-assed, you know what I mean? And we're only getting the father side of the story, you know what I mean? As somebody with wisdom, you don't want to doubt the people that you're trying to help, but you got to understand both sides of the story. So as a mentor, you're not wasting time. You know what I mean? So that's why you have to ask these important questions. And a lot of time parents are like, oh, this motherfucker don't want to help me, you know, blah, blah, blah. He's just trying to pick apart my, and it's not that. And it's the same thing with an attorney. An attorney may have your, and I'm speaking as a paralegal, an attorney may generally have your best interest at heart. And he may be asking you direct questions because your personality is long-winded. You know what I mean? And you have and I'm not saying you and Eric, I'm talking about the parent. A lot of
Right, right.
fathers get frustrated when they talk to anybody of legality or anybody who has time management as a factor, such as an attorney, because you only have like a half hour to do your consultation. And if you're there trying to give a prelude and a backstory in the middle of the story and a flashback and a flash forward of your expectations and all that in a consultation, the attorney is not able to streamline what the problem is, which is your rights being violated and not what you want. You see what I mean? So that's why it's hard for me to work through when a brother or when anybody is so far in their case that it's so toxic. They're like neck deep, and it's one thing if it's clear water and they're neck deep. You know what I mean? Because you could teach somebody to swim in clear water, but how do you teach somebody to swim when there's needles and garbage and dead bodies? You know what I mean? Floating in their shit. You know what I mean? And it's like you got too much history in this, my guy. You need an attorney.
Now this is now this is what I told him. Okay, this is what I said to him. I said I suggested that he put everything down on paper, what has gone on. I suggested that he go and talk with the people at, this is in Howard County, Maryland, to the people at the Howard County Court. And then I asked him, I would say, do you have an issue going to research it at the Family Law Library to talk about your rights? This is what I said to him. Okay. And I said to almost every father that I talked to, okay, I was like, because I'm not an attorney. I don't play it, and I'll say I don't play one. Okay, I don't go to
Mm-hmm.
that round. You know how I roll, Norman. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I say just look up your case. If you want to go look at specifics, I tell them how to do that according to the Maryland General Assembly website because they have all family law right there. Okay,
Yep.
now I say, listen, if you're saying that she did such and such and she did this to you while you were trying to be the best father you can, then you need to show how she violated those that law because y'all
You
were
need
living together.
receipts. You need receipts. You can't just go in
Right.
there talking in the wind, you and saying stuff. You need to have police reports, stuff saying, look, I went through this and this is how I dealt with it and I took a loss.
Now this is the one thing that came out, or several things came out of it. One, he told them she kept me locked. She kept him locked in the room while he couldn't go to work, so he lost his job. And she said, yes, she did do that. Okay, you actually said that you locked this man so he couldn't go to work?
But you, as a man, though, that you didn't call the police if even if getting past the jokes of beta male and all that, getting past her beating your ass, whatever it is. You mean to tell me that you didn't call the police because you were held against your will and you kept living with her? My guy, like I said, we can't help everybody, but those that want to help themselves, I will meet you halfway. I think what it comes down to is like guys like us, we're like advanced tutors. And I don't care how good you are as a tutor, you can't go in and take the test for your student. Point blank. Your student has to want to learn. They have to want to take that tutorial. They have to want to learn the lessons. They have to want to take it serious in order to go past the test. And as a paralegal, it was like being self-taught. I wouldn't say self-taught because I did get a lot of outside lessons, but it was like in a way it was like being self-taught, and I took a lot of L's. It took a long time for me. Matter of fact, it took two different sets of kids for me to get it right the second time. I took an L with my first baby mama, and I lost big time, and with no attorney, and yeah, with no attorney at all. And I was going in there trying to be the nice guy. I turned myself in for child support and, for whatever. After we broke up, I immediately went in, established paternity. It was like, I want to pay child support. You don't have to come look for me. I'm the petitioner and everything. They took 50% of my income, even when I volunteered to be the nice guy. So round two and more mentoring, with other fathers and attorneys and stuff, I learned that it's not about being the nice guy. It's about being the good guy. And the good guy doesn't take it in the chin. The good guy writes down the incidences, on a day planner. He doesn't fight, you know what I'm saying? He takes the L's, you know what I'm saying? But he keeps track of everything that's going on for the timeline. Because when it's time to be the good guy in court and explain yourself, now you have receipts. Now you have a timeline to show the judge, look, there's the repeating pattern of her toxicity. I'm not just talking in the wind and hoping you believe me based on what my words are, not my skin.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what it comes
and that's
down to.
valid, right? And that's really valid. Now, here's the thing, though, Norm. Here in Maryland, okay, we are faced with, and I want your opinion on this. We are faced with judges who are really biased. Okay. Now, when you just say you was here in Maryland and you got wind of a judge being biased, okay, and you went and you researched after your case, and you saw, well, hey, wait a minute, why did this judge rule like this? That's bias. What would you do?
So you're asking me to think first person in hindsight, what would I do if, not knowing what I know now? Because as a paralegal, when I walked into my second case, the first thing I did was look at the background of the judge to find out what his political standing was. And if he was a Democrat, I knew I could appeal to his good nature. And if he was a Republican, I knew he would respect me picking my stuff up by my bootstraps and making it on my own, you know what I mean, without assistance and help. So if I didn't do that and I was bamboozled or felt like I was bamboozled after the fact, I would try to fight if I could, depending on what the court case was, I would file an appeal or a modification as soon as possible and get an attorney if it was that serious. But there's also the long game, like, because I've been in this with my second baby mama since 2015. So I know the long game is very important. It's not about the little short game battles, and that seems to be the problem right now with America, and especially with young parents right now, is they have that impulsive buying, commercialized, thought process where they everything has to be now, now, now. I've got to get my way. I deserve. I'm an American. Blah blah. Whatever it is. I'm white. I'm black. I'm a good father. I'm a good mother. Whatever. Everybody has this notion that they're the king and queen of their own world, but they don't take in consideration the other king and queens that are just as leveled in their world also. So what I would have to do to answer your question is I would take a serious reflection on myself first and find out what the fuck I'm doing wrong. Why is it that the judge really felt, even though I went in there trying to show my best foot forward, what was it about me? Because I can't keep blaming the white guy. I can't keep blaming, because what if I get a black judge? You know what I mean? I've had black judges. You know what I mean? So I can't blame the judge because they make more money or whatever. There's a point where I have to take responsibility and say, okay, when am I going to make a change? Because I'm no longer in high school. So if my baby mama knows that I'm still hanging with the same idiots from high school, we're still smoking, drinking, partying, being disrespectful to women, you know what I mean? All the stupid shit that young men do. And this woman is matured and you can't see that. But because she's had a baby, you know what I mean? hormones have changed. She's had a reflection on her life, like a near death experience that you have never had. You know what I mean? You're not looking at things the same way that she's looking at it at that point in life. Now, I'm not saying every woman is like that and every woman has that reflection. A lot of women just have the babies because their friends are having the babies and they see a tax benefit or a welfare benefit or whatever because times are hard. And we see that more than not now, especially online, where women now are calculating how much their kids are worth by the state they live in and the man they let impregnate them. It's kind of like the adoption agencies. I've proved it on some of my videos on my platform on YouTube, where the adoption agency is ran in Indeed. Like they're looking for parents to adopt to, and they hire you in Indeed and these job sites for adopted parents, like you're applying for a job. And depending on what state you live in and your occupation, that child is worth so many dollars per hour, and it breaks it down on these job websites per hour how much these kids are worth. So it's no different than the mother of a child, especially if they're unwed or even wed, thinking short, mid, long term in the chess game of finance and trying to keep themselves afloat, thinking hard times are going to come, because women talk. And if you don't think that her mother, sister, friends are like, you need an insurance policy, you're out of your mind, because your dick is not that magical. I can guarantee you, my guy, you need to make sure that you can provide and not just talk. Because if you're just talking and she sees over time that you're not providing and you just got excuses, that's the same excuses you're going to get to the fucking judge, point blank. So if you don't grow up at the same rate that she grows up with that child, and you're still hanging with them kids from high school, you can expect the same results that you got from high school, barely graduating,
Yeah.
if at all.
Now, all right. Second point. No, second scenario. I said we need to do a fatherhood fairness commission. Okay, a fatherhood fairness commission to address to monitor the biased rulings, because let's be honest, some rulings are biased. Okay, we also need to address the inconsistencies with applying family law to cases. All right. Last point. We need we need the laws to be data driven when arguing bias amongst judges in here in Maryland in family law. Your point on that?
I agree, especially I believe it was the second point that stood out more than the rest about referencing case laws. Because in family court, it's a privatized setting. There's no cameras, so we don't have many case references to go on like you would in criminal court. Because usually criminal court's more publicized, and you can say, well, Roe versus Wade. Look at Roe versus Wade, and that synopsis parallel to the case that we're dealing with right now. Just as an example, we don't have a Roe versus Wade case that we could go off of to say this father won because he went public and there was no repercussions, and they didn't take all the stuff online and make it taboo to say his name. You know what I mean? So like for instance, you don't want to be in your family court case trying to establish to somebody who is in the South, a judge in the South, and you're spouting off Malcolm X, you know what I mean? Or, laws that Malcolm X had to fight or Martin Luther King had to fight. Because right there, you're going to be on a biased pedestal to stand on based on statistics alone and polarization of politics. So this comes down to emotional intelligence in the chess game. You have to, as far as citing other cases, what I would advise, because that where you can't do that, you can go into your state statutes for family court and find out what your rules are for your state statutes versus comparing your case to other family court cases that have won, or whatever the outcome was. So and I think what I'm going to parallel this to is what I always preach to is, if you're doing DIY, you can go into Chat GPT and just copy paste your whole argument, for example, let's just say you get served with paperwork from an attorney and it has all that, legal jargon in it. You could copy paste that, put it into Chat GPT and ask it to talk to you in plain English. And it will take out all the jargon and all the, words that look like they're in Greek or whatever. You know what I mean? Ex parte and pro se and all that stuff. And it will break it all down for you in plain English so you can see exactly what your charges are, or what the accusations are, or what the modification is, or what the judge is trying to say in Bible words, or however you want to read it, because it's not in plain text like we learn in public school. It's like they're playing this. It's like everybody writes in plain script, but they want to play and write everything in cursive. So, and not everybody's cursive is legible.
Legible.
Yeah. So when they start talking this legal jargon, it's like reading everybody's cursive, and it's like, why don't they just type it out in plain text? I
That's
probably
what
wouldn't have been late to half of my court cases if I wasn't intimidated and trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. If it was just written in plain text, I know if they want me to pay a bill, especially if it's from the courthouse and they say, "Hey, you put your stuff on hold for your deferment. It's time to pay." There's no legal jargon in there. It's all plain text English. You owe a bill. You had somebody served you through the courts. You now they're trying to pay up the $100 and whatever dollars, or whatever it is, the filing fee or whatever it is. None of that is legal jargon.
now, now, for now. Oh, let me tell you this. Since you got on me the last time we did this, it is being recorded. Okay. You
No,
know where
you're
I'm
good.
going.
No, I figure I see the live. Yeah.
um, public oversight. Okay.
Okay.
And this is what I said. I said there needs to be a public oversight of sitting family court judges and magistrates. I'm going to start off here in Maryland. Okay. Why? To have rulings or the court cases, to have rulings or court cases against them to be reviewed. Okay. Whereas we, meaning that I get with a funder to bring you over here again to help me conduct a seminar to help fathers be able to look up their case. Okay. Second point, have the public put the courts on a checks and balances system.
Where's this funding going to come from?
There are funding. There is funding out there for this. Okay.
Okay.
Especially,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No,
Well,
especially when you're looking at bringing justice to an unjust system in the courts, especially in the family courts.
okay.
Okay.
But what I'm
So
saying is like, as far as like, I see the dream. You know what I mean? Like Malcolm, I see what the dream is. I see the final goal of how do we get there is what I'm saying. So I see you wanting to set up this committee, this oversight committee, and make it more of a checks and balances because it is getting under the table, you know what I mean, and off brand, you know what I mean, and every direction. But the way to pull it into family court and stitch it together for at least to keep this part of society together in the grand scheme of things, how do we set it up and how would we employ and or volunteer, or how would we do that? And the reason I'm saying that, because the courts already do this as far as adoption with CASA, the advocate, system for the kids or whatever, when DCS goes in or whatever. So what they do is they ask for volunteers to come in and be CASA advocates for the kids because the kids can't speak in court for themselves. So what will happen is these CASA volunteers will sidebar with CPS and the judge and your attorney, if you have an attorney or whatever, and they'll come up with their game plan and then present it to you in mediation. If you don't take it, then you go to trial, and then it's whatever comes out of the end of the trial. So
now,
what
I'm
will we
sorry. Go
do to
ahead.
not make it? What will we do to not make it a CASA thing where they're just in bed with the judges?
Now, before I address that, we have two viewers on here. Ronald said he would file back to when we talk about Rashad. He would have filed an exception. He would have to pay for the transcript, right? Then he would have to prove that the magistrate erred in her ruling. That's true. All right. Then we have Phil. Okay. He said back to the what you said about the fathers. He said, I think it's a great point that brothers need to be mature. They're immature when they were immature when they made the baby, and they're still immature trying to be a father. Doing the same behavior and expecting different outcome is insanity. Phil, you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
Also, to the point that you just spoke about, Norm, Phil said, are there any nonprofits who have the resources that could provide the oversight and audit? Phil, I'm going to speak to that right now. All right. You see what I put up, Norman?
Hmm.
Okay. I sent that to the legislatures that sit on the Family Law Committee, okay, in Maryland. Okay. I asked them for to have a commission, a fatherhood fairness commission, okay, to address the inconsistencies in the family court. All right. I sent this to them. All right. I'm gonna tell you, going through this process as a pro se dad has really made me unafraid of anybody in the political realm. Okay, but you know the other reason why too. But I cannot have on these kid gloves when I go to talk to them because fathers are dying. I'm really saying fathers are dying internally with not being able to see their children because the courts create these systems to whereas it's overwhelming for them to get out of with their treatment of them. I say all that to say, Phil, as the vice president of the board, I have gone to the Maryland nonprofits. I have asked them to have a funding source to help me to address this for fathers here in Maryland. Now, to the bigger point, Norman, I have addressed it. I have asked the um, Soros Foundation, what I told you about 2 weeks ago. I asked them for funding. Okay, and I have to get that over to you so you can see how I worded it. Okay, to have us look
Okay.
at
And
it
I have to get that over to you. Go
with
ahead.
just 3 states for right now. Okay, Maryland being one. We would probably use Arizona because to me Arizona is a little bit more progressive with their family court laws. Okay, and then we would pick another state. All right. Reason I want to do this is because it needs to be addressed. It needs to be pointed to whereas how it's causing a confusion, how it's causing disconnect in the family unit. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. So, to as an idea, one of the things that women did to get their rights heard when I believe it was in the 50s when they wanted their rights to vote and they wanted their working rights to be equal to men. They went internal and amongst themselves they started publicly what's the word publicly protesting by not wearing bras, which was a very big no-no, especially in the conservative areas, you know what I mean, as far as their rights. And then some of the other things that they did, I know in some communities, and I know this from my grandmother, because she told me that a lot of men were upset because wives were holding off on sex and using it as a weapon to get what they want as far as their rights or whatever, and making sure their voices were heard, or you know what I mean, or they would use it as an excuse. And the only reason I know this is because my grandmother, bless her soul, she said, and I'm paraphrasing, and she's not alive for me to converse with to confirm, but I remember her saying something about how women would act like they're not in the mood because they were so worried about their rights or so worried about this on TV or whatever it was that was on the news or whatever at the time. And they were using that as a weapon so their men would fight on their behalf when it was time to go vote, or or whatever, at least in the face of it. So when women got what they wanted, men started seeing more of what they wanted, which was less bra, less bras, or whatever, whatever it was, more sex, whatever it was at the time, but the point I'm getting at is, if men had some kind of weapon, and I'm not saying against women, like, using your schlong as a weapon, because I know we don't have that discipline, but as a group, if we could come together as like a million man march type thing, and not let it be an hour-long event or a day-long event that people can say, oh yeah, it happened, you know what I mean? And have it be something that is hits the pockets, like a Rosa Parks type thing, where men are refusing, as a cancer on corporate America, to do XYZ until this happens, as far as fathers' rights advocacy, fill in the blank. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Now, here it is. While Winning Strategies fundraise at the Raven Stadium. Okay. So as a part of our fundraiser, we're using that money to get vans, or not vans, but rental cars or passenger vans, to go to Annapolis, because the state capital, I have reached out already to have a rally at the House of Delegates that is made up to make the family laws here in Maryland. I want I want supporters of fathers to go there, not just one time, several times out of this upcoming session. So I've been putting money, once we get it, I put it aside so we can go rent the vans to go down there, have a long sign that says Fatherhood Fairness 2024. Okay, because this is what, like you just said, not just one time. I don't want this to be just a one-time thing. It has, like you said, it has to be ongoing. Okay, but I don't want it to be just here in Maryland, like you just said. This whole system of this degrading fathers, I'm going to say, is a cancer throughout the United States.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna say
agree,
it.
but it's gonna start in one place. It's like gonna be a pop culture type thing, and it's gonna probably start where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Let's say hypothetically, it starts where you're at, and it just becomes the pop fad, like a rap video, and every rapper now has got to have this style. Has got to represent this image, because this is what's happening. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's got to be something that is simple, like a Rosa Parks, where we refuse to ride the bus, so we take, and I wouldn't even say Uber, so we ride with each other. You know what I'm saying? And we do everything that we can to not ride the bus, and not saying that's what we got to do, because that doesn't make a difference, because nowadays there's more other ethnicities that, you know what I mean, or people that are in our position that are going to ride the bus, and they're going to outweigh us financially. But if we have something that fathers, especially fathers that are in our situation, that all niche to, that affects financially government or a corporation, then we will start making changes, because we are in a democracy, and only way things change and only way things happen is through the price of money. So, and not to make it political, but the only reason why Trump and people of hate, or anybody has went as far as they went in politics, is because of money. He's back. You got to think about it. Trump spends no money whatsoever, but everybody that represents what he promises, as far as their hands in the pot, or their tentacle, as far as their a motive or their agenda to get, to not let black people vote, or to put Mexicans so they can't get the border, or whatever it is that he's putting, Muslims can't come in the United States, whatever the hate bracket is in the large scale, it's being funded by different people that are his generals under him, that have money. And most of them people now, unfortunately, are being caught up in, in Ponzi schemes and stuff, and we know who they are or whatever. But that's how he got it all going. Now, I'm not saying that we need to do that and start making, Nigerian check schemes and, and all this other stuff, to get our funding going. But we need to get a funding going to where we can have a backup politically, to where we can finance political figures and say, look, we will donate on order of Black Fathers United or Winning Strategies, whatever, you know what I mean, whatever it is, and we make ourselves into an organization that has a rival that is next to the the GOP or the NRA, you know what I mean, and we start endorsing and we start advocating, and like it just starts with us doing what we're doing now, and we say, look, we won't endorse any products on our platform that do not help out fathers getting custody of their kids. So that means we're not going to endorse any attorneys that help out fathers that claim they're about parental rights. Matter of fact, we're going to headhunt them and make sure we take them out of business. And that's what I do. I do background checks and I pull up the backgrounds on the bad attorneys. And I've gotten rid of a couple of them, in my time. Check out my platform. But long story short, there needs to be an arsenal, just like you have these caucuses and these coups or whatever you want to call them in government. These people aren't just all single fathers or people that are just bitter people that have grudges against Black people. These are people that have different niches and different expertises in life, but have a common goal in mind. So we don't necessarily have to have all single fathers. We can have women, grandparents, grandparents' rights,
Yes,
all
yes.
denominations, everybody in there. But in order for them to show their support, let's say they just stop buying chocolate products.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And
There you
support for fathers' rights, we stop buying chocolate products. I guarantee the sugar industry will fucking flip a lid in the next quarter.
have said something that I will use again because just this Friday I sent emails out to the local media stations here asking to do a PSA. Okay, I asked for a PSA to be done for the Fatherhood Fairness Town Hall, this one, and what we're trying to do on the 26th, 26th of January. It may be cold, okay? However, I still believe if fathers and supporters of fathers can spend 2 to 3 hours, not the whole day, just 2 to 3 hours down in Annapolis, down at the State House, saying you need to treat us better. You need to do what's right for fathers. I bet it will speak volumes. I'm saying it's going to speak volumes because we'll have the media outlet. We'll have the media there saying, well, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? I thought fathers were treated fairly. See, there you go. You're not being paid to think. You need to come ask us how we're really being treated. You should come and ask us to look at the orders that are being made up. Okay, and I'm gonna get to that point before we stop. Now I want to show the viewers who's catching us right now one of the other commercials. The commercial made up by Norm. So let me stop this one. I think it's this one.
Spend with their children. It is a
Who's
common.
that voice, Norman?
Title 40 is a law in the U.S. about child support. Judges decide custody arrangements based on what's best for the child. Often, parents without custody get time to spend with their children. It is a common arrangement for stability. If you have questions, talk to a family expert. Judges and magistrates are wrong for taking my time away.
Yeah, that was a little Norm on that one, helping out in the cause.
So that, okay, from the mouths of babes, talking about what happens because they're taking our fathers away. Okay, from the mouths of children, they are able to express how they feel because they don't have, I'm gonna say the buy-in of having the relationship with both parents, not just one, with both parents. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to hit as many corporations, I'm gonna say here in Maryland and throughout the United States, just to get this started, is because I don't. Well, you may have heard me speak about it before. Okay, um, about the guy that shot the judge in his own driveway
Oh,
because
yeah, Lewis. Yeah.
yeah, because he filed. And see, here's the thing: we can't get. I gotta get my press, my as you told me, my press credentials so I can go get that file.
Mm-hmm.
If that
Yep.
gentleman filed for divorce and custody, why did the judge wind up being murdered? Why did the judge choose to give almost everything to the
Pedro.
mother?
It was Pedro. That's
Yes,
him, not
Pedro.
Lewis. Yeah.
Why did the judge choose to give everything to his children's mother when he filed? This man had no history of abuse. This man had no history of doing anything we could got our hands on to see. However, and as one of our friends pointed out, it was because Lamont. It was because of what they call coercive control. She said she said that he was holding money from her. He wouldn't allow her to drive one of his cars.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge used that without having proof of that and saying, well, he was doing coercive control and he wanted to make it fair for her.
Not mentioning that she filed for a bogus restraining order the day of the divorce, that they filed for divorce or whatever. She went ahead and tried to file for a bogus restraining order. You know what I mean? It never, no history. You know what I mean? No, yeah, yeah, I read up on. I actually did a video on it. Yeah, shit, about 2 months ago on that. But yeah, yeah, we looked at it too, and it was like so bogus, the whole case up and down. Not saying that the judge got what he deserved, because nobody deserves to be killed because they're
To
doing
be
their
murdered.
job. Or even if you are a dick at your job, you don't deserve to die, because of it. But with that being said, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you're going to have that power given to you, where you've educated yourself, went to school, pulled strings, whether you were family ties, whatever you did to get in the position that you're at, to where you can control the finance and family legacy of grown men, you got to understand you're in a high, tension, employment. You know what I mean? You can't just be willy-nilly throwing your weight around thinking, oh, I'm going to show this guy because he reminds me of this bully from high school, or he reminds me of my dad, or, whatever. I mean, not everybody's case is going to be your case. You know what I mean? So as a judge, you really can't be showing bias because, whether you feel it's karma justified or not, your time is your time. You know what I mean? Whether it was sooner or later, you know what I mean, or planned or not, or whatever, he got murked in his driveway. You know what I mean? There has to be a lot taken from a man to make him mentally break down that much. You know what I mean? Especially in America with all the opportunities that we have. This isn't like we're in a communist country where they just come in and like slave times and just take your kids and tell you to deal with it. You know what I mean? Type shit. We're in America. There's supposed to be a check and balance here, but the judicial system seems to be turning into a criminal court system. And they're allowing these mothers and some fathers just to go in there and make all these far left, weak accusations. I'm a victim. Save me, government. and the government just comes in and just starts raping the other parent for child support. It's crazy the way the system is turning.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna look forward to communicating further. I know you took time out because I know you could be doing other stuff right now. It's only 6 o'clock over there where you are in Arizona, but I appreciate you coming to share with us tonight. Share with me tonight. Now, before I go, I wanna hear from you. Seriously, if it was Norman's world, what two laws would you change, and what two laws would you institute to help fathers?
Just to help fathers. One let's start with the laws that I would institute. One would be the parental educational classes that are sometimes mandatory during a high conflict resolution. I think they should be more than just like a 4 8 hour class. I think it's something that it should be a kind of like a domestic violence type thing where you have to go for maybe a week, do a couple of classes or whatever, something like that, depending on where you're at in the state or whatever. I don't know. But I know 8 hours isn't enough, and $140 or whatever it costs to get the certificate online, that is mandatory now for family court. You know what I mean? I would change that. So if you are going to make me pay $140 or both of us, let's not make it an online course that you can just halfway go through and it's graded on a curve. You know what I mean? You can pass with, I think, 70% or some shit. You know what I mean? And as a parent, I would be upset if I got 100% on my test and found out that she passed with a 70% as an average parent. And as an A parent, as a parent that passed with an A in that same class, you know what I mean? Not saying that academics proves that I'm the smarter or better parent, but that would be one milestone that I would see as an uneven, landmark to say, well, how are we being judged as parents if she's a C parent and I'm an A parent according to your scoring? So I always thought that was something that needed to be checked, especially if the courts say that it's not about putting one parent against the other, it's about the best interest of the child. The other thing that I would change or implement would be the and I think they're already doing this. I think I've seen this online in Texas or whatever, where the child support is mandatorily given on a debit card that can only be used for like medical or gas, or it can only be used for certain purposes. And that card is only recognized because it's not like a Visa, MasterCard. So it's only recognized at certain locations to be used, like the grocery store, you know what I mean, or whatever. But even then, it depends, because if the mother's on welfare anyway, she's got an EBT card that she's using, plus she's getting child support. So I would have to say that the mother would have to put in, like, I would say kind of like unemployment. In unemployment, you have to show how many places that you have applied to in order to get the employment, you know what I mean, get the money. I think it should
Right.
be the same thing with the mothers. They should have to have like a receipt list to show, look, this is where I'm applying. And it can't be nothing where, oh, I only make this much money, so all the money went to paying the rent. You know what I mean? She has to have a breakdown to show what she's actually financially investing in that kid on a monthly basis. Are you buying him sneakers every other, biannually? You know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So not only does it give the court and the father a peace of mind, but it also makes the mother, who is not normally on par.
Mhm.
It just keeps the level field straight, just like unemployment does. And if that woman feels that she's too good to do that, well, then you're too good for child support. Get a fucking job. It's what it is. Get a job and split 50-50. You know what I mean? 50-50 custody. That way nobody pays anybody. But if you're that high strung about, you know, I can't work, he's got to pay me child support. Well, if he does have to pay you child support because you can't work, because you're, whatever your situation is, whatever it is, here are the guidelines. You have to make a report every month in order to get your next supplement check. We're still going to collect it from him, and we're going to hold it. But if you don't submit the receipts or or the log showing where, justifying, your child is benefiting from the child support, and it's not just going to you drinking and alcohol and going to the club like your online profile shows.
Now, thank you for
That,
that.
that
Thank you. Now, everybody, you've just heard from
Get quality
Mr. Norman
service.
Nix.
I had
Okay, Norman has his platform. I've learned from Norman. Norman has been here to school me. Okay, give me some education on some things. Okay, I'm glad that I am under him doing this together with to help the cause of fathers' rights. Okay, now you heard how he said he uses Chat GPT to help. Okay, he has taught me how to use it for going to, I don't want to say at, because it makes it seem like I'm adversarial, going to political figures and trying to advocate for a changing of laws that will help us. If you need to reach him, okay, you can look at his YouTube channel. Okay, he's online, the Norman Nix show. I mean the Norman Nix 2. All right. He has his character is a guy in a car. Okay. So that's Norman.
the green hair troll, yeah, on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you need talk to him. Okay.
Well,
Really.
and
Go if you look.
in all fairness too, if you do want me to, because obviously time is money. My services are not free, just like anybody else. You know what I mean? My knowledge is valuable. You know what I'm saying? So I do charge $50 for an hour consultation to show you how to use Chat GPT and to go over your profile, your case. Like I said, I'll go over it. I can't give you legal advice, but what I can do is show you what exactly the successes and the lessons that I had in my own case, and we can parallel them to your case, and we could decide whether this is something you want to pursue or if it's something that you need an attorney for. And I think $50 for an hour is way worth it than you spending $1,000, what I'm saying, down on an attorney just to have the attorney do the same thing that you were already doing for yourself.
Thank you. Now with that, I'm going to close with this. You know how to reach me. You know how to reach Norm. My number is 443-768-8158. Norman, I'll be talking with you. I need to thank you for agreeing to do this for this last hour. You know, I love you, man. Thanks.
with winning strategies, fatherhood, the courts, and custody, you get quality service. I had a father call me at work because he filed on his own and they were trying to basically ream him with child support. So he stood up in front of the judge and said, well, Judge, I have a problem with that. I told that lady from DSS, because he's in Howard County, Maryland, okay? I told that lady that I lost my job and that I didn't have any income. So how can you make a ruling on my past income? Not present, but past. So he thought about it. He said, that's right, sir. So he said his child support went from 1,300 to 700. Then he said, well, it's still wrong because I don't work for Papa John's anymore. I lost my job and I was in an accident. Here's my medical documentation. Oh, you're right again, Mr. Richard. Then judge calls a recess, he says, because he wanted to look over the documentation. Then he's approached by DSS and they start to ask him questions. He says he turned around to her and said, ma'am, I don't have to answer you. And she walks away. All of this was information he learned, he was privy to when he was with Winning Strategies, Fatherhood, the Courts, and Custody.
With that being said, everybody, I want you to have a good evening. I want to thank you for just tuning in for this last hour and 10 minutes. Okay. You know how to reach me. If you want to be a part of this fight that we're going to try to do, please, mothers, fathers, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, things have to change. Like Norma said, they're only going to change when we put our foot down. Let's start putting our feet down now. Good night.